Okay, so before we get into today's video, I just wanted to ask you to go ahead and go down below and drop a like and subscribe. If by the end of the video you didn't like it, you can change that like into a dislike. And if you got bored and clicked off, you can go ahead and unsubscribe. I'm just really trying to push for 100 subscribers currently. That's my current goal. I'm at 79 subscribers right now. And yeah, with that being said, let's get into the video. All right, so today I just wanted to do an updated guide. I'm sorry I couldn't bring this out sooner. I had work over the weekend as well as catching up on some assignments. I did put out a Lady NIFLE guide, and there were some people in the comments making some corrections to some things. And then I made the mistake of posting a very short guide. I think it was 30 to 40 seconds on YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram Reels, and all that. And I did make some mistakes in there. It was generally the same info that I had in my video that I then just carried over to that. The one mistake that I for sure made was when I was talking about the bow, I put up a picture of the wrong bow. In the editing, stuff got jumbled around. The bow I put up on screen was supposed to be for the support characters, and then I was supposed to put up her actual best in slot bow. I made a goof, right? That's fair. I got a ton of comments correcting a lot of things of that nature. So if you're here from that video or my original video, like the long form video, I want to say that my point with both of those guides was at a beginner level, right? So I recommended Lisbel, Margie, 2 characters that you get for free for playing the game. Yes, every character in this game is free, but you also have to grind. These are characters given to you. You get her by clearing Mystic Maze. You get her from the story. You already grinded for Lady NIFLE, right? Now, with that being said, I will go ahead and make some corrections. I will tell you what her best in slot for a lot of things are and just expand the guide a little more versus what I gave last time and give some more clarifications. And then I'll take the info from this video and screen grabs from this video and then edit it together in a short form that will get the point across a little more with basically what I was trying to convey. But to sum all that up, I was trying to make a simple base level guide, someone who just got in the game, just unlocked Lady NIFLE, and is like, all right, what can I make with what I have? Because that's essentially what I did. I got Lady NIFLE, I looked around on my account, what are the things that I have? What can I throw on her right away? And that's what I went with, because that was the point of the guide. Now, I know that me titling it Simple Guide might not have come across that way. I didn't want to just make the series called Beginner Guide because everyone does that. Everyone puts out Lady NIFLE Beginner Guide, Lisbel Beginner Guide to this, Beginner Guide to that. I wanted to stand out a little bit in the search terms and things like that. However, I understand that led to some confusion, so I will be dialing that back, and I'll keep the series name Simple Guide, and then I'll put Beginner Guide in the thumbnail or vice versa. I'll change the series name to Beginner Guides and then change the thumbnail to just have the Simple Guide. I'll do one of the two just to clarify things a little bit, but that's enough yapping. Let's get into it. Now, I will go back over Lady NIFLE's abilities and things like that because there were some things that I got wrong there and just some clarifications overall. So I'm not going to go in depth into her skills. I'm going to go over one of the most important ones right here, which is going to be her passive. That one is going to be based on the trigger probability. You're going to get a double proc on your normal E and the E that you get when you're in your buffed ult state. Now, the double proc that'll hit from this will not be buffed. It'll just be your normal skill, but it is still some extra damage nonetheless. Now that only matters if you're I0. All these guides are going to be based on the character at I0. Reason being, I don't have the time to I6 every single character, and I don't want to make a guide that is fully based off of things that I don't have access to and cannot do. That's another reason why I recommended the things I did in my previous video, was because those were what I had my hands on. I could have done some research, I could have looked at Reddit posts, I could have looked at other guides to see what was going to be the best for them. However, I didn't want to just take information elsewhere and then put that in my guide. I know that left to some incomplete information and maybe some not most optimal things. I am going to change that in the future and just say fuck it. I am just going to take some information from elsewhere or from the comments, because I've gotten plenty of information from the comments on what is going to be best for the character. Now, getting back to this stuff, your ult is going to buff up your E, it's going to buff up the damage, and it's going to buff up the effects. And like I said, this passive will trigger still with the skills that you use in your ult, but it won't be that buffed version. So you won't get, for example, one of them, it does a pull together, It's a crowd control. It's a grouping mechanic, and then it does extra damage. If it procs on the grouping mechanic, you won't get double group. It'll just be your normal E, and there's no way to change that. One of the things that I had said last time was that you want to look here for the weapon and see what their best in slot weapon is, and then go based off of that. That will only give a buff to that specific weapon that you use on the character, and right now a lot of characters' damages comes from their skills and their ults and things like that. As you can see right here, skill damage, skill range, skill efficiency has almost nothing to do with her weapon. The weapon is just a stat stick for now, until we get characters that deal more melee weapon damage or more range weapon damage or things of that nature that really play into that and play into that stat. However, currently we don't really have that. So moving on to her weapons, I had said last time that this katana was her best in slot. Now, for the plus 36 skill range, I still do think that is the best in slot. Reason being is that is going to buff your ult damage. Now, where the trade-off is that won't buff you outside of your ult. The skill range is only converted when you're in ult. So it's a trade-off. Do you want to do more damage in your ult, or do you want to do more damage outside of your ult? If you want to do more damage within your ult, you're going to want anything that has skill range on it. So that's going to be this Wither Shade, and there are a couple of other weapons that also have skill range on it. For example, like this one, it has some skill range, not as much, so you probably won't want to go for this one, but it is a pole arm, so I'll get into the pole arms in a moment. So just looking at these two, skill damage 24, skill range 36, 24 plus damage plus 36% damage, right? That's going to be the difference there. Now, that doesn't apply, as I said, to outside of your ult. When you're outside of your ult, you're going to want skill damage more. So it just comes up to how you want to play the character and your play style. Now, one upside to using a pole arm is there is a demon wedge that will change your charge attack to like dash forward, and that is great for movement. So the trade-off, once again, is damage with an ult if you go with skill range, or if you go with skill damage, that's going to be damage outside of your ult. And now the reason I brought up this weapon before as well is because this is a pole arm, which is what you need to equip that demon wedge, and this also gives you skill range. So if you want the best of both worlds for movement plus the ult damage, you can go for Siren's Kiss. If you want pure ult damage, you go for Wither Shade. If you want pure outside of ult damage plus movement, you want to go with Wayne Wraith. So those are the three main melee weapons that you're going to want. We'll move on to the range weapons. Now, this is where I fucked up. In my short form, I said that this bow right here was her best in slot bow. However, I didn't mean it. I had a screen grab of this bow, and that was supposed to be for the support characters, which we'll get into in a little bit. However, her best in slot bow is going to be this one right here, Embla Inflorescence. Now, I've seen people say that Embla Inflorescence is only good within her I6. Now, unless I'm reading this wrong and I'm misinterpreting this, once again, within her ult, so for ult damage, within her ult, skill range is converted to skill damage, and also just having skill damage is good. So if we look at this weapon and read the weapon skills, skill range plus 30%, so 30% skill damage. When a Lumino character deals skill damage, grants 35% skill damage for 6 seconds. That seems like great to me. That seems like a 55% skill damage buff, unless I'm misreading something here and I'm not understanding it. So regardless if you're I6 or not, to me this seems like her best in slot weapon. Now the issue with this is that you don't unlock this weapon or the ability to get this weapon until you unlock this boss right here, the level 70 Warden of Inferno. Now that will be unlocked at, I think, level 50. Now that will be unlocked at level 55. So a big gap there before you can get her best in slot weapon. So what might you want to do for her weapon until you get that? Goes back again to my original suggestion of this weapon right here that you get for free. You don't have to grind for it. You just get this weapon. It gives you trigger probability and you're done. You can rock with this all the way up until you unlock that bow. However, if you want to min-max a little bit and get something until you get that, out of your options, the only one that's really going to be good would be kind of this one, because the actual weapon itself with this AoE damage might be a little bit better than that assault rifle. However, looking at all of these, there's not really going to be any of these that you want to use. There are going to be some right here like skill range, some skill damage, and if I just go ahead and check the shop real quick, which is where I should be to look at this, so that way we know what we can actually unlock at this point. Remember, I'm trial rank 49. You unlock her best in slot bow at 55. So looking at what you can do up until then, there's not really a lot. So we do have this one right here. We do have this grenade launcher right here. Now this is something you can do. This is going to be skill range. So this is something that you can grind for. This rend husk is going to give you attack. That wouldn't be bad. And that's really all you have access to that would be worth grinding. Would be Entropic Singularity, Rend Husk, or Destructo. It's really all you're going to that's really all you're going to want to look for in here. Now, there are some weapons that you might be able to get from Nocturnal Echoes that might not be too bad for her. However, Nocturnal Echoes, again, if you're to the level, just grind out this bow. If you're not to the level though, there's also another reason why you might not want to go and grind for some of the weapons in here. And reason being, one of her support characters is going to be Tebeth, and I'll get back to that in just a moment when I get to her support characters. So, to sum up the range weapons, you're going to want to look for trigger probability. Now, that won't be as necessary the higher you go within her introns, but by the time you get to there, you'll be the high enough level to unlock her best in slot bow. So it goes hand in hand. So just throw something with trigger probability or skill range if you want to grind for it until then. Moving on to her support characters. Now, I had recommended Lizbel, Truffle and Filbert, Margie, Daphne. The reason I recommended Lizbel was for her combat partner skill right here, increases attack for self and Lumino allies. Truffle and Filbert, or her passive right here, where two characters have the same element. So if you were to do the Lady NIFLE, Lizbel, Truffle and Filbert team, you would get that resolve. That would also help you get into your ult quicker to have that buff to damage more. Again, going back to if you want to build for ult or outside of ult. I recommended Margie for her insane attack buffs through both of these passive skills right here. However, one of the teams that I did recommend being Lizbel, Margie, and Lady NIFLE, that is starting to oversaturate on attack. However, again, looking at characters that you have at the start, who else would you put in there, right? If you are building just a singular team, not for endgame, because again, you're going to want to diversify your supports. However, we're just looking at one team here. Within one team, realistically, who are you going to equip? And that is why I gave those suggestions. Now, moving on to another character who is going to be her best in slot is going to be Tebeth. Now, Tebeth has a buff right here where she'll summon the tentacles. It'll increase their damage dealt and also grant self and allies a boost to skill damage. And that boost to skill damage at level 1 here is going to be 16%. And that's obviously going to go up. And then you have here the duration, which is going to be based off of Tebeth's skill duration. That's just a summon for them. And then right here is just another little extra buff for those tentacles to do some extra damage. Now the main one that you're looking for is going to be this one right here as well, which is going to be increased skill damage for self and allies. And that is going to be a 8% boost on top of the boost that this one will give you. So she is going to be Lady NIFLE's best in slot. So to repeat her combat partners, you're going to have Lizbel, Truffle and Filbert. You'll have Margie, Daphne. Potentially, you'll have increased crit chance for self and allies, a 40% crit chance boost. Pretty good for early game when you don't have your demon wedges all mapped out and everything. And then when you're able to get her, Tebeth. And the reason I say when you're able to get her is because she is part of the weekly challenges, and you might not get enough in order to unlock her. You just might not get lucky because you need 30 copies. You can get a decent bit each week from the 5 claims if you get lucky enough. But then you also have to get lucky enough within the commissions to get her. So it could be a 2 most likely 3 if you're super unlucky, potentially even pushing into 4-week process to get this character, which is what I'm working on right now to try and get her. Now, an optimal team for her, I feel like, is going to be Lady NIFLE, Lizbel, along with Tibeth. Reason being, Lizbel herself does a lot of damage, and she's also going to benefit from that skilled damage buff, whereas Margie isn't going to do as much damage. And then if we're looking at how to optimally build her, that's also kind of assuming that you're in in-game, and in-game is going to need 2 teams, and I feel like Margie is better placed within another team. So I believe, and again, I can't test this because I don't have Tibeth. I physically cannot test this. However, from what I've read, I feel like best team will be Lady NIFLE, Lizbel, and Tibeth. I feel like that'll just be a great overall team. Everyone's going to be putting in some good damage. That's great. Now let's look at weapons for your combat partners. That's a suggestion I got in one of my videos, was to go more in depth on what you want to put on your combat partners and how to build them as well. So for your combat partners, you're not going to have to worry about both melee and ranged weapons. You're only going to have to worry about one. Now, again, assuming we're optimally building here, you're also going to have a second team. And there's only so many weapons in this game that give a team-wide buff when you use them. For example, going back to the bow that I put in that was wrong, I meant that this is going to be a good weapon for your supports. It's going to have skill duration, and then when they land a crit with that weapon, it's going to either give all allies for 16 seconds attack, defense, skill damage, or skill duration. Now this is random. It would kind of suck if you hit that defense or skill duration, but if you hit that attack or skill damage, that's going to be great. This one will be more suited on Tibeth because it's going to buff that skill duration, and you want that buff from the tentacles to be up for as long as possible with her in order to continue to provide that skill damage boost. So I would recommend this one for Tibeth. Now, what do you have left that will give you some buffing capabilities? You have this one, which is going to be when a Luminal character deals bonus damage, there's a 30% chance to grant allies 9% attack for up to 15 seconds, up to 10 stacks. So this could be good here on Lizbel in order to just give you some general attack. Now, one thing that is a trade-off here that I can see, you could place this on Tibeth and the bow on Lizbel. Reason that you would put this on Tibeth is because right here in the passive, it says when a Hydro character triggers a bonus effect with this weapon, other allies gain 33% attack. That's something that you could use on her. However, the trigger probability isn't going to be as useful versus the skill duration buff. But if you want to, in general, maximize your buffing, you may look to do that instead. However, just going back and looking through these weapons, unfortunately, there is not a lot in this game that are going to give a buff to the whole team or a support weapon. So in that case, you can just throw on whatever you got. Now, if you're going for optimal, then I would go ahead and recommend that you still match the damage type that the character is doing to the weapon. So for example, Lizbel over here wants skill damage, duration, or efficiency. What I currently run on her is this one right here, which is a little better when you actually use her on the field. However, same thing as before, you can just go through and look at these. Skill duration right there, you can throw that on. Skill range. So that's the kind of issue that I run into personally when looking at what weapons to start putting on the supports, because there aren't a lot of the supportive weapons. So if you put the 2 good supportive weapons that you see there so far, right, if you put them on the same team, then you're not going to have any for your second team. And so that's just something to think about and keep an eye on, is how you diversify those weapons. You could put that ranged weapon that buffs the attack right here. You could go ahead and put that on Lizbel, and then on Tibeth, just throw on some other random weapon that's going to increase your skill duration. Or you could put on this one right here on Tibeth, which is going to give the attack buff. So again, buffing your team. And then on your other support, just do something that'll benefit that character. So that way you can diversify your buffing weapons across your 2 teams. That makes sense. So to summarize that, put one character on one of the team buffing weapons and the other character on a weapon that'll benefit their own kit. Correcting some things that I said with Demon Wedges, you're not going to want to put Prime Serenity on Lady NIFLE. You're going to want to put that on one of your supports. And again, so we'll just moving on for the rest of this video, which this video should be over soon. I know, quite a long one, but I just wanted to clarify a lot of things for you guys. Looking at her best team, which is going to be Lady NIFLE, Lizbel, and Tibeth. For the Demon Wedges on Lizbel, obviously you're going to want anything that's going to up your skill damage, your duration, or your efficiency. So going to be looking at the same type of Demon Wedges for Lady NIFLE. You're also going to want over here, except she's going to want duration over range. So you're going to want to look for those stats on those Demon Wedges. And then you're going to want to look for Prime Serenity, which is going to give you sanity. Right here, Prime Serenity. You're going to want to put this on both of your characters because it doesn't say here that it doesn't stack. Now, I don't have access to it, so I'm not sure if it does or doesn't stack. However, it doesn't specify within the description that effects of the same type don't stack. So this is going to, again, help with your sanity, especially if you double stack it. Now, looking at some of these other ones for, there would be the Hydra one that you would put on Tibeth. We would put the other one that I was just showing on screen on Lizbel. Moving on to some other ones that you may want. You're going to look at this one right here for Lumino. Skill damage. Boom. Right there. You want both of those for Lizbel and Lady NIFLE. Coming down here to Hydro. Skill efficiency and attack. That's pretty good. Max sanity and skill damage. That one wouldn't be bad. For the Demon Wedges on your weapons, again, generally, none of these are going to really affect it that much because you're not using them. So you're kind of just looking for these substats that you may want. Trigger probability is always going to be just a good one to go ahead and go for. There are going to be little ones like this one, increases movement speed after having defeated an enemy. Sure, not bad. Defeating an enemy gains one stack that increases attack speed, but you're not really going to be attacking with it that much. It's going to give you bonuses to crit damage and stuff like that. Now, I do believe that this is going to be the polearm one that you're looking for. Upgrades polearm charge attack to launch a forward dash, damaging enemies in the user's path for double the damage of the standard attack. So launch forward dash. Looking at these other ones, it's plunging. That's charged to throw the polearm forward. And then that one is to summon phantom spears that strike the target. So looking at it, this is going to be the one that you want for the movement speed. And the last part to the build is going to be the Geniemons. Now for Lumino, over here, you do have this increased Lumino attack for the main character and the combat partners, as well as deals Lumino damage equal to a percentage of the main character's attack and increases the skill damage taken by them by 3.6% for 10 seconds. So that's going to be a good one if you're fighting like bosses, because it's going to hit the enemies and those enemies are then going to be applied with this debuff that's going to make them take more skill damage. If you're fighting trash mobs, obviously they're most likely just going to get one shot anyway. And so using this on them isn't going to be as effective. But in general, that's going to be that's going to be what you want to look for. And so that's going to be it for my guide. I want to thank you guys for all the support recently. Even though some of the comments on my last short were negative, I do think some people had good intentions and there were some good comments. However, people who are just leaving comments, LOL, most of this info is wrong. Actually, it's this or that. I get it. They didn't know that this was my first type of guide. Technically, that was my second guide ever, but I'm going to take it as a lesson. I'm going to try and be more clear and concise. This video is a lot longer, so my engagement and click-through rate will probably be less because that's what I was banking on before, making them shorter. But I just wanted to clear up everything for you guys, make everything as simple and concise as I could. And then here at the end, I just want to ask if you could go ahead and drop a like and subscribe if you didn't from the intro, and drop a comment down below any suggestions in terms of who I should cover next. I do plan on covering Lynn next. I think that is, I'm going to record that right after this. I'm gonna get some water, go to the bathroom, then I'm gonna record my Lynn guide, and then I'm gonna edit them together and kind of space out the postings for them. Now, who would you want to see after that? And then what type of content would you want to see after that? Do you want to see more guides? Do you enjoy the structure of this? Is there a way that I can streamline this more? Should I go with more of a script? Because I do go off on a tangent, repeat myself, or say a lot of things that I don't really have to. Or do you enjoy this off-the-cuff style of content? Along with that, that'd really be it that I got for you guys. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. thank you for sticking around to the end. It is greatly appreciated. Getting that engagement up, getting that watch time up, that viewer retention. I really appreciate you, even if you just had me on in the background. Hopefully I'm not too annoying to listen to, and hopefully I edit out plenty of my vocal mistakes and things like that. But I hope you all have a wonderful day. Peace.